In the northern desert region of Mexico, about 400 miles south of El Paso, Texas, there is a very mysterious place known as the Zone of Silence that is responsible for some very strange phenomena. Ever since man first ventured into this unforgiving region, there have been many strange stories and legends passed down. In the mid-19th century, farmers would tell stories about searing hot pebbles that would mysteriously fall down from the sky on perfectly clear days. And they also noticed that the plants and animals that live here would often display mutations and deformities. And if you stay in the Zone of Silence too long, there is a very good chance that you would start to feel a feeling of dread, and sometimes you can see or hear things that are not really there. And there are also a lot of reports of missing people within this area, as it's very easy to get lost. And some say that over time, you start to lose your sense of direction, and even your perception of reality, once you enter the Zone of Silence. One of the first accounts that helped put this place on the map for strange anomalies happened to a Mexican pilot by the name of Francisco in the 1930s. While Francisco was flying over this region, his plane's instrumentation just started to go haywire and his radio ceased to function. Then in the 1970s, a missile carrying radioactive material launched from the White Sands Missile Base in New Mexico and mysteriously malfunctioned over the Zone of Silence, and the missile crashed. And the really odd thing about this incident is the missile was not even supposed to fly over this area. While it was in midair, it just changed course. It's as if some unknown force attracted this missile to the Zone of Silence, then forced it to crash. Now this got the United States Army's attention, and right away they started to investigate, and they uncovered some very strange things. While in the Zone of Silence, they realized that none of their equipment worked, and after further investigation, they came to the conclusion that TVs, radio, satellite signals, etc. just won't work here, and then they named this location the Zone of Silence. Now there are many theories as to why this happened, but scientists have been researching this area for decades, and they still can't figure out the exact cause for all these bizarre anomalies and disturbances. Now this alone makes this region one very mysterious and interesting place, but there is a lot more going on here. There are also many reports that have come in over the years about 3 very unique people that are seen here quite often. These 3 people appear to be human, but there is just something not quite right about them. 2 of them are male, 1 is female. They're said to be very attractive, very tall, and have bright blonde hair, and they're always extremely polite. The ranchers were the first to notice these 3 odd people, as from time to time they would approach the ranchers and ask them for water. And when the ranchers would ask them where they are from, they would reply from above, which is a really strange thing to say. A very famous encounter comes from a scientist who was working at the Biosphere Research Station. The scientist decided to go for a nice little walk in the dead zone, or the Zone of Silence, and not too long after he got completely lost. Then 3 tall blonde-haired people seemed to just appear out of nowhere, and they helped the scientist get back to his facility. And when he turned around to thank them, they were not there. They just vanished. Another encounter happened in 1978 when a news team was in the area doing a story about this mysterious location, and yet again they got lost. Now the news team didn't have any food or water, and it was really hot, so they were starting to get a little scared. And as they were driving, one of the passengers told the driver to stop as he saw 3 people on the side of the road. But the driver kept going because he didn't see anybody. So the passenger thought that maybe he was hallucinating. Then just a couple of minutes later, the passenger saw these 3 people again, and he demanded that the driver stop. And this time the driver did stop, although he didn't see anyone. Then the passenger started to talk, and when the driver looked at his friend to see who the heck he was talking to, he was now able to see 3 very tall blonde-haired people. 2 of them were males, 1 was female, and he also noticed that they were very oddly dressed for the desert. And the news team asked them for directions, and they very politely told them where to go. And since these 3 people were in the middle of nowhere with no water, the news team asked them if they wanted a ride, but they said no, so they left, but when they looked back, they were gone. It's as if they just magically disappeared. Then in 1975, a man named Ernesto and his wife was in the Zone of Silence looking for fossils when they noticed that a pretty big storm was approaching, so they decided to leave. But they ended up getting caught up in the storm, and their truck got stuck in some mud. Then they were approached by 2 very tall men in yellow raincoats and caps, and these men offered their assistance, and they told Ernesto and his wife to go sit in the truck while they pushed the truck from behind. And once their truck was pushed out of the mud, Ernesto got out to thank the 2 men, but they were gone. And he stated that it was really odd, as the terrain was really flat. How could they just disappear like that? And he also noticed that they didn't leave any footprints in the mud. make many believe that these were indeed the two tall blonde men, and for whatever reason, the female that's usually seen with them just wasn't there. Now, there have been countless encounters over the years of these very tall, very polite, and very attractive blonde beings in the zone of silence, and some believe that they're aliens disguised as humans, and some believe that they're human, but from another universe or another time period. There are also tons of UFO sightings and just strange lights in the sky within this region. In 1976, the residents of the town of Cibalos reported seeing a huge flying object over 300 meters in length hovering in the skies above. This craft was described as being rectangular, and it was just pulsing with lights, and the colors were constantly changing from green to white to blue. The residents of the small town also stated that there was a very loud humming noise coming from this craft, and the animals were going crazy. Then this huge UFO just vanished once it entered the zone of silence, and the ranchers constantly see orbs hovering over this location, and sometimes the visitors claim to have seen desert bushes catch on fire, even though it's not really that hot. Now, the zone of silence is also known for meteor strikes. In fact, so many meteors strike here that it's one of the most hit places in the world. And during some of the Apollo missions, some of the rocket boosters would crash in the zone of silence, even though mathematically that shouldn't have happened. Now, many believe that this location contains some sort of ancient interdimensional portal. And when you look at this location on a map, you can see it's in near perfect alignment with the Bermuda Triangle and the Egyptian pyramids. Could it be that for some reason, this latitude possesses some strange anomalies and phenomena that we just haven't figured out yet? Or is there something else at work here? Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.